Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Lippis. Today on Built for Trust, I'm joined by Ben Edmond. He is the founder and CEO of ConnectBase. Ben has been at the center of one of the most important and least digitized parts of the enterprise infrastructure. That's telecom and WAN connectivity. While cloud went API driven, self-service, and also programmable, telecom largely remained manual, relationship-based, and very contract heavy. ConnectBase is changing that by turning fragmented network infrastructure data into a more structured programmable layer, enabling service discovery, quoting, and procurement in a way that looks far more like cloud than legacy telecom. Ben is also a key partner with ONUG in our ONUG Connect initiative, where we'll bring together enterprise AI-based WAN automated procurement for the community at large. So with all that said, please help me welcome Ben to the Built for Trust podcast. Don't forget, there's an AI networking summit coming up, and you're invited. So go to the onug.net website to get your tickets now. So, and also if you're on YouTube or Spotify or any of the places where this podcast is being broadcast or streamed, make sure that you hit like or subscribe to it. Thanks. Ben Edmond. So great to have you, Ben. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be here with you, Nick.
I'm been really looking forward to this podcast like all day. Because, we've been working together now for, probably about a year, maybe not so much of a year, but it seems like, about that long. And, you and ConnectBase have been instrumental in ONUG taking a lot of the work that we've done in the WAN API working group and turn that actually into a product, the ONUG Connect product. And I've learned so much during that process. And a lot of things I knew, but I just haven't thought about in a long time about telecom. So I think we're going to talk about that. Within the ONU community, obviously there's a lot of focus around AI, but I think that is rippling through or about to ripple through the telecom industry in a very kind of different way. And so I think we're going to get at that, during this podcast.
That's great.
I want to start with, really having you talk a little bit about, your background and, what brought you to ConnectBase. Also, let's explain ConnectBase, what ConnectBase is and what it does to the community. And then you're the founder of ConnectBase and the CEO today. So what kind of brought you to that? And, what was that? What kind of sparked that interest to kind of like do this?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity, Nick. I've been in the connectivity industry, the telecom industry since the mid 90s with a brand called MCI, if you remember that name way back when. That's where I got my start. And I've been on the commercial side of the service provider, running product, running marketing, running sales, participating in that buying and selling motion across the industry, and learned a lot of lessons, had some really nice success along the way. But in that, couple decade journey before I started ConnectBase, ultimately I learned that the digital economy was dependent on connectivity to deliver these experiences and these amazing innovations that changes how we live, work, learn, you name it, and impact us. But the industry operated like it was in the 80s, very manual, very archaic in its processes, and disconnected from the innovation going on above the network. And, those moments were what led me to start ConnectBase, because I looked at what folks like AWS did to compute, transformed cloud computing with an abstraction layer that allowed you to go in and take advantage of things in real time, a very API centric world that sparked all kinds of innovation from there. And I wanted to bring that innovation, that digitization to the connectivity industry.
Yeah. Yeah. it's interesting because like I started my career somewhat in telecom. I was working at Digital Equipment Corporation. That was like in the mid '80s, and what I got involved in as a first project, outside of college, was to build a kind of the largest privately owned fiber optic network, across all the deck facilities, all across New England, so up through New Hampshire, and then all throughout Massachusetts, and I've always loved networking and communications. So it's so funny. I haven't thought about this in a long time, Ben. But I remember like when I was finishing undergrad, and I was like, pondering, okay, well, what do I want to do? I just had gotten a double E degree, and I'm like, okay, well, and most of like my fellow students were going to work for Raytheon, and going into like the, you know, um, kind of arms manufacturing, kind of really, they were building Patriot rockets,
Sure.
is really what they were doing, and the control systems for those. And I didn't want to do that. And it just didn't really kind of excite me. And then so I was out, having a good time with a bunch of friends, and I drank a little bit too much. And the next morning, I woke up and there was a Time magazine on the coffee table. And I opened it up and I went to an article, and it just said like there's a new era in telecommunications. And that was, in 1984, and that's when like the Bell system got broken up.
Absolutely.
And so I read that, and I was kind of like, it was talking the praises of fiber, and and how telecommunications about to be revolutionized, and both technology and kind of governance, structures are changing, regulatory structures and so forth. So that's got me excited to kind of go in, and so I started there, and I've been kind of a networking person, my entire career. But and what I've realized, but then I got a little bit, I was kind of like mostly operating kind of like at layer three, and
Yep.
not so much at layer one anymore. For those of you who still kind of go by the OSI model, right? Because there was a view in the industry that kind of layer one was kind of like a low value, low margin kind of thing, and then in
Absolutely.
the mid '80s we were just starting to build the internet, so
And
it
how
was like,
wrong people were. Like, I mean, the physical layer matters.
yeah, oh my god, yeah. Well, everything flows through it, right? All your intellectual property, um, everything flows through it, and you're right. It unlocks the experience that the applications were designed to
Yep.
deliver. And if you don't have that, good experience, good transport, then it doesn't matter what the application developers wrote, because you're not going to have a good experience with it. So yeah,
It's
but
pretty fascinating world. I've been enthralled with it since I stepped foot in the industry, and have never left. And passionate about it here at ConnectBase. We're trying to build the operating system that allows for those transactions to happen seamlessly, end to end. And there's a lot of work still to be done, but proud of the last decade that what we've been able to accomplish with what's now over 440 providers we do business with.
yeah, so let's talk about ConnectBase. So, like, for those of you who don't know, and so I'm going to give a little preamble, but Ben, you kind of dive into it. But
Sure.
ConnectBase provides a kind of wholesaling exchange between service providers. So service providers, so like, you know, say it's like Verizon, AT&T. Everybody knows those two service providers. They're, no matter how big you are, you can't cover the entire planet, or let's just say all of North America. For all that matters. So there needs to be a way in which service providers can buy bandwidth from each other.
Yep.
And so you automated that process. So like now there's like
Yeah.
some 400 or so service providers that now go through your exchange, where they can order up, they can scale up, scale down, bid out, discover what kinds of services are there, from who, if they want to do business with them. So
That's right.
that's the way I view, like, really ConnectBase is like is an exchange with like billions of dollars flowing through it.
Yeah, about
That is
10 billion a year right now, which is not insignificant. But I think you're describing it very well. We help facilitate suppliers to be found. We digitize their serviceability because it doesn't matter who you are. There's no one on the planet that has enough capital to build everywhere. It is a very hard capital intensive industry, which is why we have just about 11,000 physical last mile owners around the world, which is a lot.
that's a lot. Yeah, but that's
U.S.
also a
has
big
the
problem.
most fragmented. Yeah, geography is geography. Like it's a big problem to tackle, and the way the industry's tackled it because of smartphones and the internet, they've had to connect their networks together to deliver the experiences we all demand.
Yeah, yeah. It's um, so like before you were involved,
Yep.
a service provider would they would have to kind of send out RFPs, or they would have to send out like requests, or they might have their special service partners that they work with to kind of like see if they cover particular areas. So the discovery part, I think, is a big part of that. So like now it's like they can discover there might be like 5 or 10 companies that could satisfy that need for them, where they maybe before, either because you had someone in procurement who might have been a little bit lazy, that
Yep.
okay, they only kind of like call the people that they know. But now it's like they can get the best price. They can offer, they can basically do a better job for their shareholders and for their company, in order
Absolutely.
to kind of provide that coverage. Right.
And what we find is because customer demand is where it is, the network actually matters. Those who respond digitally and fast end up earning more business. They have a higher win rate. So not only are
Yeah.
they buying better, they're actually winning the deals at a higher propensity. So those things excite me, like being able to create value on both sides of the equation, and really help drive the right networks in the right places.
Yeah.
Because before we existed, it was largely spreadsheets, manual emails back and forth, KMZ files that took weeks to get, swivel chairs into different portals, going out to dinner, sending out the RFPs, like the processes of, the last 3 decades rather
Yeah.
than an automated experience that people actually wanted.
Yeah. It really didn't change much since like the 1950s.
Exactly.
Really, it's like, and frankly, they're still very much like that, in the on the retail side of it, which is the
Yeah.
enterprise consumer to them. So let's kind of talk a little bit about, I think, this inflection point, that
Yeah.
that you're describing. So, and I know I've done this, as even there was a period of time that I was doing kind of consulting work, and um, we would basically try to obtain the estate of a company. So, how many
Sure.
WAN circuits do they have? Where do they have them? What, try to project, okay, what kind of applications are coming down the pike, what's needed. And a lot of that stuff, you're right, they were kind of spreadsheets, that's all really you had.
Yeah.
And so you would then develop an RFP. You would send that out to a set number of companies.
Yeah.
You'd have this really long provisioning cycle, because like, one, gathering all the data is a huge undertaking. Putting that into an RFP is another huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Sending them out, and then the RFPs, and then you need to give a good block of time for someone to consume that, respond to it, and then you've got to like compare them all.
And
you
that
know,
comparison's not easy when they're coming in different formats and different structures and
yeah,
different ways of representing this product versus that product, let alone just, normalizing things like speed and price. Like all that takes real work when it's not
yeah.
digitized in a structure and a set of standards. And, that's what we care passionately about. And what I get so excited about what you guys are doing at ONUG and
Mm.
what we're helping with.
Yeah, it's well, I think that whole process, and I'm leaving a couple of things out in that process too, because like you might be doing, working with, the and whether it's the procurement team, sometimes it's the CIO who's
Sure.
kind of like dictating this, because telecom is in the top 10% or the top 10 line items
It's a big
within
number.
most corporations, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and out of your entire IT supply chain, it is the least automated.
Yep.
And you can be doing all this work to try to get the best kind of price, for your company, and then maybe an executive has dinner with one of the telecom providers, and then all of a sudden, there's a whole nother set of requirements that all of a sudden get injected, in there. So I, what
Exactly.
I'm really getting at, it's a very relationship, driven manual process. And I think what you did for the wholesale space, which is, kind of look at, okay, how can we get like elastic services abstracted, so that you can actually, consume, or basically don't have to go through that process and automate a lot of that process. How do you now do that for the retail side? So I
Yep.
think that's kind of the structural changes. There's, so I think we can do the parts that have become really digital that are automated is the discovery part, getting quotes for particular,
Yep.
circuits, and then or cost for circuits. And then once you see cost, doing an analysis on that and then sending out quotes. So I think that is kind of that's all digital. The procurement is a little bit different, right? Like people might have to kind of
Yes.
roll trucks. It's like, oh, okay, the router is supposed to be like, on in the in the telecom closet on the third floor, in building F, and it's not, so it's like all of that stuff, is has to be factored in. And there's progress
There
that's
is
made,
big progress.
but I think with that as the context, that is still pretty much in, like, as like, we're going through a design program with a couple of, like, big members in the owner community. Some of them Fortune 100 companies, they still doing spreadsheets,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
and this stuff.
Which
So they're still doing
which is
RFP.
not surprising, but there is a better way, and that's what I know you already know, and the ONUG design group knows. Like it is important to take that step, and things that are commonplace in cloud and other parts of the IT services stack are just not prevalent in the telecom stack overall. But it is changing, and it's structurally there's been things that have happened that help accelerate those change, us included as part of that, but other things that, frankly, you guys have been a part of driving the SD-WAN and SASE adoption out there. That
Mm,
fundamentally decoupled the logical network and the physical network from having to be the same thing,
yeah,
which opens up the art of the possible to pick the best network at the best place.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Let's spend a little bit of time on that structural shifts, because like what structural shifts, do you think are happening now that enable, more of a kind of automated kind of WAN provisioning, that it's
Sure.
not just possible, but it's inevitable. It's like this is not like kind of something that might just happen. It's something that's going to happen. But there are some key structural changes that are happening now in the industry. So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I look at it across, really four dimensions of change, structural change that have happened over the last, 5+ years that have culminated into a point where this is inevitable and this is happening now. One of those is the change in enterprise architecture, the shift to the cloud. Applications are distributed, workloads are multi-region in the cloud, multi-cloud in the clouds. That reality is placing different types of pressure and opportunities in the network, and frankly, none of it works without a network. So there is a pull through demand because of the shift in architecture that's happening, and that pressure is felt on the industry in a very positive way. That I can see and feel and touch, going on in the ecosystem. I
Mm,
think second is the change in the network itself. There is a continued build out. The reality is, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the concept of fiber connected locations was not everywhere. It
Yeah.
was some places, but it was not truly massively dense. For the last 2 decades, the industry's been deploying, deploying, deploying. And the reality is, we now are at a critical mass where most enterprises have, very good access to real fiber, and a lot of times choices in that fiber that didn't exist 10 years ago or more. And the structural consumption of that fiber with SD-WAN and SASE being part of the mix allows for a more, fluid selection process based on a location by location basis. And this industry is very intensive.
Yeah.
I think third is, the carriers are modernizing. They recognize the need to be more programmatic, to more process driven, and take their OSS BSS investments that are substantial
Mm.
and expose them to the customer side versus just the network side.
Yeah.
If you go into a lot of the providers, the network itself is wonderfully automated and has a lot of intelligence built in to drive best possible outcomes. But exposing things to customers and partners has been a challenge for the industry for years. I think that's finally catching up, where we're at an inflection point where the capabilities ourselves, including inserting in the mix, help bring the network that is automated to the customer experience in an easier and easier method. I
Yeah.
think lastly, economics, the reality is people on both sides of the equation, the buyers and the suppliers, have this need to optimize economics. And you can't do that with these long manual processes, sending out truck rolls to see if you really have fiber at the location, understanding everything on a on-demand basis that is manual versus an on-demand basis that's automated. That change, that pressure from the CFO's office on both sides, has
Mm.
put the inevitableness in automation for this industry.
Yeah. Well, those are four good kind of drivers, for change that kind of say that this is inevitable. There's kind of there's architectural change, there's customer behavior change, economics, technology, and then also I think what you're getting at too. There's also cultural,
Yeah,
change, as
without a doubt.
well, right? Opening up like the OSSs and those uh, uh, basically the control plane,
Yeah.
of the telecommunication system that was always very proprietary and held very tight. So
We do
I'm optim-
business with 30 out of the top 30 operators in the United States, just as a data point. So, that's easy to go down the list and say, because I'm saying every single one of them we do business with. Uh, that wouldn't have been possible 10 years ago. Not all of them culturally were ready for what ConnectBase does in digitizing and exposing APIs 10 years ago. And so then a lot of that, to your point, is cultural and a shift in understanding of where they need to be for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does that kind of, well, you're closer to this, than I am. I'm closer to on the consumer side of it. And we're working together to kind of bridge that gap, between the two. But from a telecom provider, so if connectivity does become programmable, and we have a marketplace where your exchange gets really big, the ONU Connect, platform becomes an exchange really for the consumption, for the retail side of the
Yep.
marketplace. What do you think is really going to change culturally inside of telecom providers in order for them to really embrace this future?
I
Like,
think
are
the
any of them worried about like margin erosion because now they may be, in a more competitive environment, where access to competition and is higher, and so like where there'll be a race to the bottom, around margins, or is that um, or you've brought so many together, so obviously they
Yeah.
process that, so maybe what's your
Yeah,
experience
I
there?
mean, I think that's the initial fear that most it doesn't matter the industry, but our industry, that was an initial fear. I think we've largely proven that that's not the case. That there's a accretive benefit from reducing friction, participating fully, and have done a number of deep studies where even the existing parties that had business together before that thought they were doing everything have grown those relationships by 7% or more by digitizing through us on existing relationships. So it wasn't that there was an erosion. There was a growth element, and a lot of these companies, frankly, are growing at low single digits. So
Mm,
getting 7 or 10 or 20 points of growth is material and important. But that trust is absolutely part of the equation. Like, how do you show trust on both sides that you're there to help them achieve their success? And I think there's enough proof points on other industries as well to show that there is a better way, and the industry needs to evolve to that better way.
yeah. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, and be advocating, for that, especially as we start to roll out the ONU Connect platform. I think, so it's like a part of this, like, going to like your 4 points, the last one around kind of technology, like I know the OSS systems, that the service provider has been using. They've been looking at how do they automate as much process as they can with AI. I think what we're doing with you is that our use of AI is really to automate that whole procurement part to the
Absolutely.
customer, and it's not only just the procurement of it, but it's also the analysis. So the the biggest use case that we've been seeing of that's driving interest, like in the design partner program. So just so everyone knows, like, so we're in the midst of working with Ben's company and ONU. We have an application called the Owner Connect application, and what it basically does is that it can look at your entire WAN estate. It can discover your circuits. You can look at pricing from various different service providers. You can get quotes, and then you can order those quotes, and we can track how those circuits are being installed and when they get installed and so forth. So that's a journey that we're on. That's the full kind of life cycle, of a workflow. But but the AI piece of this is like really just fascinating, because once you start to input your WAN, say even like maybe like a couple of states or maybe a couple of countries in Europe, what have you, and you have that actually loaded into the system, then we have a really great module called the WAN estate that will look at, it'll discover all of the circuits from various different providers that you're not using. But before even doing that, it'll look at, what is your WAN estate's current state? So, what are you spending on those circuits? Are they in contract? Are they out of contract? You're paying for something that you're not even using anymore. Does it meet the requirements? Like how much bandwidth is it actually consuming? Is it too low, too high? And then we can run AI models across that, and also look at, hey, compared to others who are spending, on that particular circuit or in that particular area, you're overpriced or you're underpriced. So you can now start really looking at how do you effectively manage that, and then the AI models will actually look at the estate, and it'll give you ideas, okay, where you should actually be investing in, and then you can now go to to bid. You can get quotes from companies that you never had before. I think that's a fundamental change on how the industry works, and I think going back to like the trust and the cultural changes on the service provider side of it. So say you're doing a business with a Fortune 100 company. Um, if you're now within the system that we're building, you may think you have most of that market sewn up, but now you'll have procurement people who can see vastly large amounts of their own WAN estate that you may have access to now that you didn't have
Yeah,
access to before. So you can actually grow, an
this is
account.
exciting.
You know,
Absolutely.
so I think that there's So I think there's people are going to have to, like, once they start kind of utilizing these systems to really understand them. But I think the benefit is going to be a huge amount of time, saved. The economics has got to be there. It's like if you're
Absolutely.
not saving 15, 20%, on a large WAN estate, by actually having these tools, then you are really well managed. It's like, but no one's really well managed in that sense. Yeah.
Transparency and the insight. I mean, they create the opportunity to go and take action, which is really, really powerful and exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, all right. So I have a little lightning round that I want to go through. Are you good
Absolutely.
with that? All right.
I
So we'll
am.
kind of,
Absolutely.
all right, good. So we'll kind of like just do a couple of quicks. All right. So first one, in 5 years. So let's kind of crystal ball it. Will enterprise buy WAN capacity more like AWS or more like today's carrier contracts? 5 years.
More, more like AWS in experience. So
Hmm.
search, configure, price, order, but carrier economics underneath, meaning, like a reserved instance, because physics won't change. Like, if you put in a 10 gig connection, carving it up dynamically on a per meg basis all the time might not be the best economics for the enterprise. They might buy more like the reserved instances thought process on AWS. But I think experience wise, no brainer. We are on a path and it's going to happen.
Okay, great. I believe in that too. I'm with you on that. Um, so next lightning round. What's the biggest myth enterprises still believe about telecom?
The biggest myth is that they are inherently slow at everything. And the reality is the network isn't slow, and the telecom providers aren't necessarily slow themselves. It is the workflow that is slow when the network is not physically all connected the way the enterprise needs it. One of the big changes that's happened with more on net buildings, more connected fiber places, more capacity, 10 gig connections, 100 gig connections, it means that things can literally get done in near real time. And as that proliferates across the market deeper and deeper, you can see it in the data center today, but more and more places are getting that. And that enables speed to happen as well.
Yeah. I would think, my biggest myth is that I think it's a derivative of what you're saying. Is like their product development cycles are excruciating. God, I can't pronounce that word for some reason right now.
And I agree.
Long. They're
Absolutely
really,
agree with that.
they're really long. It's like, oh my god, like
And
like
largely driven by, the hardware community of what they're enabling the service providers to do, the
yeah,
Ciscos, the Nokias, the Siennas of the world, with innovation on their side. And I think that world is converging because of software, and it'll be an interesting next 3 to 5 years because of AI.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm with you on that. I one thing that I've always thought about as well is that, are they too focused on standards? And that just slows them down so much. It's like 5G, 6G. It's like where if you look at like kind of the internet, standards activity, Wi-Fi was really quick,
Yeah,
and Wi-Fi is like
it's
progression. Is
super
like
effective,
yeah, you know, it
amazingly effective.
you know, it doesn't scale like a 5G scales. But it serves a lot of purpose. But anyway, okay, enough on the myths. I think we exceeded our lightning round on that. MPLS, a declining product, or hey, it's just evolving.
Declining as a default. SD-WAN and SASE have clearly, taken their mind share away from MPLS, but MPLS is not going away. It is
Mm,
just designing itself in the hybrid WAN. When deterministic purposefulness are needed, it's still very, very relevant in that equation.
yeah, Yeah, it's interesting. We were with one of the design partners earlier in the week. No, it was last week. And um, and we actually had this conversation. They want DIA everywhere.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, yeah. So it's
That's
like,
the number one choice out there. Was broadband in COVID. We see about 4.5 million quotes every month across our platform right now. So we see a
yeah,
lot of the market.
yeah,
Broadband spiked up with SASE and SD-WAN pretty materially, but DIA has been, the sort of de facto number one choice for the last couple of years.
yeah, yeah. It's like, and yeah, these are big companies. They're kind of like they want that control because, like, once once you have kind of just a big internet pipe, you can do just so much more.
You can
On the
absolutely
provisioning side, on the automated provisioning side. All right. Okay.
100%.
Okay, we're both agreeing on that one. Okay, if you could remove one friction point from telecom tomorrow, what would it be?
Inaccurate serviceability data. It is the bane of my existence. It is
Mm,
my passion to build location truth. Because if you get that right in the service provider world, of who really owns what where, everything else sort of starts to fall into place. And
mm,
we've done a lot, but we still have a lot of work to do. We regularly see 3 to 7 versions of the same location with different attributes inside of the providers we work with, and we work really hard to solve that. But if I could wave a magic wand, that would be it.
yeah. Okay, that's really good. You're right. Like we see that come up all time and time again. In the design program meetings that we have. It's like, hey, can we believe that data? What's that data based upon?
Trust.
And yeah, you have to trust it. You have to prove that trust. With them. So
Or,
yeah,
oh
that's
yeah, I can build there, and oh, by the way, there's a railroad track in between that location, and I can't get there because I can't get the permit for 9 months. And trust breakers, like all those things matter.
yeah. Okay. I think I just got one more. AI workloads. Do they accelerate WAN transformation or expose its weaknesses?
They absolutely do both. I
Yeah.
think they accelerate, but they expose the legacy procurement limits, bandwidth density, latency sensitivity, and interconnection gaps that are needed to solve the AI workload challenges. But it will force the modernization because the demand is real.
Yeah. 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 I haven't um, seen it, but I would think it would probably be more on the latter of that, meaning that it exposes the weaknesses, and then it will accelerate transformation.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
think the need inside of most enterprises is, and we're still early innings on it, proven AI to truly transform things. But I think there's a collective push and force that feels very much like smartphone adoption plus cloud adoption times 10 of people's desire to lean in and make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I have. You mentioned kind of smartphone, mobile. So I had. So sorry, I'm kind of like not being very articulate. But last Friday I was on a call with a potential design partner, and they were like, "Hey, are you doing anything around mobile contracts? Because we've got 40,000 people walking around with different mobile contracts. If you can if you can aggregate that and give us visibility into it so that we can go out and bid that, that is just gold." So
Yeah.
yeah.
Another day.
And I was like, hey, there's one big problem to solve after another. Because like, okay, so telecom, so layer one is about $1 trillion market,
About
1, 2 trillion,
that. It's a big.
two is probably too big. Yeah, so it's a big, and that's a worldwide number.
Yeah.
That's a big, big industry. So and we're trying to automate that. So you know,
It's a
we
worthy
got
cause.
say again.
It's a worthy cause.
It is a worthy cause. It's actually kind of fun. It's like, I'll tell you, every time Tony presents, Tony
It's
Fernacci,
exciting.
the CTO of ONU, the ONU Connect, I have never had reactions to anything that I'd presented or was in a meeting that was being presented that actually was so positive. It's like, I'm like, oh wow, good job,
It's
Tony.
how
It's
it's
like,
it's the topic, and the problem is real. The needs out there, and just the way it's approached is very thoughtful. So I'm
yeah.
honored to be a part of the journey. But I think what you guys are doing is fantastic.
Yeah, well, great. Well, we're kind of tied to the hip on it because we're dependent upon you guys for a bunch of stuff. So I'm sure we're kind of pushing a little bit. Um, I'm not sure about too hard, but it's like we're pushing for you guys on certain things so that we can
Absolutely.
keep the design partners with us and engaged along the way. But okay, I think that's all I had. Ben,
It's
do you have anything
great to spend
anything you
time.
want to add?
No, I just encourage the community to keep paying attention, to lean in, and actively participate, and look forward to participating in the May Dallas event and continuing on the journey.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, May Dallas. That's where we're looking to launch. ONU Connect. So we're hoping that we'll be through most of the design program, or at least a good amount of it, so that we can really come out with a really good product. Because I think to me, it's like So I do have one other thing, and I think it just goes to talk about WAN provision. We know like there is value in there clearly around kind of economics, greater
Yep,
visibility, greater transparency, that you could really see what you're spending, and also you see all your options and choices. We know all of that. And I think that's pretty easy to understand. What I think that um, most don't understand yet is how much control flows back to the consumer,
yeah,
on this. Those options and choices give you more control, on how you manage that estate and how you, deliver value, back to your shareholders and your corporation. And it's,
absolutely.
for anyone who's managed like a large WAN estate before, um, you know, like a really large one. It's like some of the largest banks. As an example, it's
Huge.
not. Yeah, it's not unreasonable for them to kind of shave off $100 million. Like every couple of years, and get better. Get more bandwidth, not less bandwidth, and then that $100,000 is now going to fund something else.
Yeah,
So because it is like in the top 10 line items, and it's not managed really well. So I think this will have a really fundamental shift and a change around how that how an entire IT stack can become automated now. Like right now, it's like a lot of the automation is clearly happening above the
yep.
physical layer. This is now finally brings the physical layer in line with the rest of the IT supply chain. So that's fun to do, and that's really disruptive to the industry. But I think it needs to be done. So
It's going to be done. Looking forward to it.
I think that's all I got, Ben. Okay. Hey, so much fun. It was great hanging out with you. And we'll see
Appreciate.
you in May for sure.
Absolutely, we'll be there.
Big,
I'm looking forward to it.
big shindig in May. Okay,
It'll be fun.
great. Thanks,
Thanks
Ben.
for having me, Nick.
Yes, of course.